Hello, this is Eric the Violinist here, and I want to welcome you to my very first podcast. And I have to be honest, I'm a little nervous because I've never done anything like this before, but I figured this would be a way to be closer to you, my fans, as well as talk about the things that are very important to me personally, as well as in the classical music world. Since this is the first episode, I wanted to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Eric. I started violin at the age of 3. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois. My training, undergraduate training, is at the Boston Conservatory at Berkeley, and I'm currently doing my master's at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, and I'm part of the Quartet Fellowship Program. I have 1 more year left. So I started the violin at the age of 3. I did not choose the instrument. My mother chose the instrument for me. It's kind of a funny story because I started in the Suzuki program in downtown Chicago. I forget what the name of the school is. It may or may not be there anymore. My mother signed me up for 30-minute lessons. She was originally a pianist, so she figured that violin was a good instrument for me to begin with, and if I didn't like it, I could choose something else. But at the time, violin was a solid choice, so she signed me up for 30-minute lessons. I remember the first lesson. I think I was either at the age of 3 or 4. I hid underneath a table for 25 out of those 30 minutes. So it was kind of ridiculous that I've come a long way and I still continue to enjoy the violin, even though I was a little twerp. So so that's really funny just to think about. Yeah, so my experience in music goes a long way. I was I'll start my experience in Chicago, and then I'll go chronologically, and I'll go towards my experience in Boston. So I was originally doing violin lessons at the Suzuki school, and then eventually I actually took violin lessons from my aunt on my father's side. She's also based in Chicago, and I took violin lessons for 10 years. And within those 10 years, I did the competitions. I was also part of a violin school out in the west suburbs of Chicago, and had a really good time there. We went on tours to Italy and Prague and California. I think that was 2010, so quite a long time ago. And this was all before I began my undergraduate degree at the Boston Conservatory. So that's just a little bit about that. And I think what people should know about me is that I was completely unsure if I wanted to get a violin degree. As you know, classical music is not a very easy profession, and I think a lot of my family members were very worried about me going into music. My father's side is a very musical family. My uncle's organist and bassist, and like I said, my aunt's a violinist. And they were pretty much unsure if music was the right fit for me. So I browsed a few schools, and then a colleague of mine, I would say this is my junior year of high school, where I was trying to make the decision if I wanted to do something with music or if I wanted to do something else and kind of give up the violin. So this person recommended to me that I should apply for a music festival, and I've never done music festivals in my youth, so this was well, actually, no, that's not true. I did a couple music festivals, and one in Colorado called Music in the Mountains, and then I did another one maybe a long time ago when I was very early in my progression as a violinist. But yeah, so she said that you should try this this festival. I think you have a very good chance of getting a full ride. And this festival happens to be Interlochen Arts Festival. Pretty much everybody was asking the big question: are you going to go into music or are you not? My decision pretty much based on, okay, if I get into this festival and I do a good job and I get a full ride, then obviously that's the universe telling me, saying, you need to be doing music. And if I don't get, for whatever reason that I don't get a scholarship or I don't get into this festival, then that's an obvious sign from the universe to say, okay, time to choose something else. And then pretty much a miracle happened, and the universe granted me this awesome full ride. I was an Emerson Scholar at the Interlochen International Arts Music Festival, and I was playing under Jung Ho Park. I don't know if he's still there now. And that festival pretty much was the turning point for me in becoming a classical musician as a profession, as a career. My goal was to be an orchestral musician because I was so inspired by this orchestra very international, people from Peru, people from Korea, people from Ecuador and Latin America and all over the United States. Pretty much this festival is so international, it kind of blew my mind that I didn't know about this earlier. So I was very interested in this classical music world that was kind of introduced to me. And not to mention, I was interested in the violin for a very long time. And I was pretty much in this bubble in Chicago in the violin world. But then this festival in Michigan really gave me some exposure to what the possibilities are in terms of how everyone could be so motivated to be accomplishing one goal, and that is to have an awesome performance week after week for 6 weeks at the highest level that you can possibly play at. So that really inspired me. I went to the festival, and then that summer I went back to my teacher, and I'm like, I'm going to audition for schools. I'm going to audition for music schools, music conservatories. That kind of really, really motivated me. So I worked my butt off, and luckily I had an amazing mentor at the Boston Conservatory, and here I am. 6 years later, after in Boston, or in the Massachusetts area, freelancing, gigging, and meeting new people, creating some awesome collaborations with some fun people. And that's pretty much it in the gist, the basics. So I really wanted to do this podcast because, again, I wanted people to know who I am. I wanted people to hear my voice. I do a lot of writing on my website, ericmrugala.com, and I write blogs. I try to write stuff that's interesting and what people could use in their everyday lives. With the violin, with music, and outside of music. So just to tell you my plan is with this podcast to get like the inside scoop into my routines and what I'm doing musically and career-wise, and to really hear more of my voice, to hear what I have to say about things. And then I'm going to be forming another podcast, which will be more interviews and will be more about music business and trends in classical music and how classical musicians in the 21st century can adapt to these rapid changes. We have the internet, and then we have Instagram, social media, Facebook, not to mention the decline of orchestras. I want to address all these things because they're important. And if we don't talk about this now, then none of us are going to have a career at the end of the day. So those are topics that are very interesting to me. And I feel like this is one medium that I can do this in. While musicians like me, and I'm sure, people who are listening to this podcast are on the road driving to a gig or driving to a rehearsal or hustling, and this podcast is for you if you are one of those people, who want to hear my thoughts and hear my voice. And hopefully I have some stuff to say about the violin, and hopefully that this upcoming podcast hopefully I can get this set up by the next month. That's pretty much the plan. I'm in the beginning stages of trying to plan everything out and who I want to interview and who I want to be able to talk about these ongoing topics and what we need to do to address them, what we need to change, and there may be conversations that I might be wrong, like flat out wrong, and somebody might outsmart me in an interview, and I think that's okay because you have that open dialogue going on. And I think this is going to be a continuing conversation, and hopefully that we can create a community, not just me, but you and the people and all the people who are listening, to share what I have to say, as well as share your thoughts and your concerns. And I'm totally happy to answer any questions that are pressing either in your country or in your city, in your town, in your state. I think this is one of the outlets, this is one of the mediums that I can do this in. So it's going to be a combination of that. The second podcast, I won't reveal the name, and I won't reveal the people I'm going to be interviewing yet, but I just wanted to give you an outline of what that's going to be like. Okay, so the first topic I want to be talking about in this first episode is to address the practice regimen in the summer. So right now we're in the beginning month of June 2018. For most of us, we're going to be relaxing. We had a very, very heavy freelance year. driving, performing, practicing, gigging, all sorts of stuff. By the end of May, usually people are so burnt out and they just need to take a break. So I kind of want to address that personally, what I do and what I'm doing with my practice. So for me, practicing the violin is kind of a tricky thing. I used to do the whole 5-hour, 6-hour practicing. I would wake up at 5 a.m. in Boston, and then I would take the 39 bus from where I used to live into the city, just to get to the practice room, so that way I can just start my day. Because there just really was no other option, because I was, the conservatory education is not easy. So you have to really find a time to practice. And it was very difficult for me. So I did what I could. I did the 5 hours and 6-hour practice regimen. And for me, people may disagree with this, but for me, I like to have time. I like to have a plan of action. I like to have a deadline that's far away enough that I can meet that deadline and I can do a good job. So that's kind of what my summer is going to be like. My duo partner and I are going to be going to Italy for a music festival, and I'm pretty much preparing for that, along with a couple of chamber pieces that I'm working on, practicing in the practice room. So just to give you an idea of how I practice, people are different. Every person is different. And for me, I'm a morning person. So I like waking up in the morning. I like practicing in the morning just to get it out of my day, because my mind is fresh. I know that I can eat a really good breakfast, healthy meal with my tea. I usually practice with a cup of tea, get that mentality of relaxation and making the whole practice experience very meditative and very zen. Because if you have too much tension in your body, and you have so many things that you need to worry about, that's pretty much what happens between fall and end of spring. We have a lot of tension. We feel like we're inefficient in our practicing, and the summer helps us get back on track. Take a step back, really focus on what matters. Look at your deadlines, see the upcoming performances that you're going to have. And, and I'd be lying to you if they're not going to be any last minute performances that are going to pop up. Of course there are. And you're going to do your best to work around those. And you have to be flexible. But at the same time, when you have the big things planned out and you have the goal, you're in the state of mind, I'm like, okay, I gotta do this, and this for my performance in November or my performance in October, whatever it is. You have to have a game plan. So that's what I like to do. I like to have a game plan. What I normally do the night before is I write stuff down that I want to accomplish with my day, and I have a list. I usually have a notepad near my bed. Before I go to bed, I write down what I'm thinking about doing, and then I might not accomplish all those goals, but at least I have an idea what I accomplish within the week, within the month, within the summer. I pretty much set out my practice regimen for the next morning. So I wake up, like today. Today's a very good example because that's exactly what I did, pretty much. I made a list last night because I couldn't sleep, and I woke up 6:30 in the morning. It was at the practice room by 7:15. And practiced 3 hours, and I thought it was very productive because I had a plan of action, and then I had goals. And for me, I used to practice 5 to 6 hours a day, but I just don't do it anymore because, if you can practice 6 or 7 hours straight at a time, then good for you. But for me, I can't do that anymore. I have to divide up my practicing. So if I do, let's say, 2.5 hours in the morning, and then perhaps another hour and a half to 2 hours in the afternoon, so be it, yeah. But I like to get all my practicing done in the morning because I feel the most fresh and I feel like I'm the most focused in the morning. That's one of the things that will help you in your practicing if you're kind of struggling on getting back into the rhythm of doing your regular practice in the summer. And, we're still really early, and I know some of you may be conservatory students, some of you may be professional freelancers, and some of you are going to be in festivals, and you're going to be practicing pretty much every day. You're going to be in rehearsals every day, and value that time because, really, really make the time count. Because if you don't make the time count, then you're pretty much wasting all your energy for, you're just not going to be effective within the next year. And I want people to realize that if you have a goal, you have a plan, and then you have clear deadlines, And if you're a person like me who likes to have time within those deadlines and you have a goal, so be it. I like to have systematic practicing. I like to have a system where I know that, okay, I need to have a passage by this tempo. I need to make it in tune by this day, and kind of combine all the ingredients so that way I can make the recipe and make the recipe come to life. So that's pretty much what I am focusing on in the summer, and I encourage you to focus on those things too in your summer practice. And some of us have full-time jobs around music, and some of them are part-time. You might be doing other stuff, but if you're really serious about playing music, and if you're really serious about the violin, I think you will make the time. I'll give you an example. After I graduated, this was 2015, I pretty much had no idea what I wanted to do. I really had no idea. I was at Boko with the mindset of, okay, I'm going to be an orchestral musician. I want to be an orchestral musician because I love the repertoire so much. I performed in amazing venues. I was part of the Boston Philharmonic Youth Orchestra for a year and a half. I got to play in Carnegie Hall. I got to play in Royal Concertgebouw in the Netherlands. And I'm not saying this just to brag. I'm just saying this that, with music, you have so many incredible opportunities, especially if you're in an orchestra. You go through the entire process. You audition. If they like you and they like your playing, then you get in, and then you have a seat in the orchestra. But I realized that life was very, very tough when I took an audition with Utah Symphony. I took that audition with Utah. This was before my senior year. This was this was end of summer 2014. So I flew to Utah. I did the audition, and for those of you who are new to the experience of orchestral auditions, pretty much the gist of it is, in a professional setting, you're given a number, and then you're given this number throughout the entire hour within your round. So let's say your round is from 8 to 9, and you're the first person that walks into the door that day for that round. And okay, you're candidate number 1. So you're going to be candidate number 1, and these are the excerpts that are going to be expected of you. You have to play the excerpts, and then you pretty much play the excerpt with a concerto. Usually it's one romantic, one classical, along with 2 excerpts. With this audition, I had Mozart 39 exposition, which to those of you who are orchestral musicians, that excerpt is just so tough. And then 9 measures of the first movement of Brahms Symphony number 1. And then I played Brahms Concerto, just completely fell on my face on that. I remember that experience really well. It's like as if it was yesterday, and definitely regret choosing that concerto for my audition. And then pretty much that's it. You're behind a screen, you walk on a red carpet, you do the music, you play the music, and then they pretty much, okay, thank you, and then you're sitting in a room full of other violinists who are interested in the job. That's the first round. And then once the round is finished, the proctor says, okay, number is so and so. You are accepted into the second round. To those of you to those numbers who have not been called, thank you very much for your interest in the symphony, and hope you keep us in mind for the future. And then I thought to myself, I'm like, crap, if I have to do this for the next 10 years of my life, I'm going to hate music. I really am going to hate music. So I try to come up with solutions, right? I come up with a solution like, okay, if there's anything that I have control over, then it's trying to create my own opportunities and trying to create my own musical business opportunities. So I know that auditioning for orchestra is going to be so tough because, back in 2015, you have this survey where you have 40 full-time orchestral positions, but over 1,000 violin graduates graduating that year. So the market is broken in the United States. And I can't speak for other countries in Europe and other cities in Europe, but I can definitely tell you that full-time livable wages in an orchestra are almost non-existent in this day and age, unless you think of the top 5, right? BSO, Chicago Symphony, Cleveland, San Francisco, LA, like all Philly, all those orchestras, right? But you gotta hustle if you want to be able to succeed in that area of music. But I digress. So going back to after Boko, after I graduated, I was completely lost as to where I was gonna go in life personally and go with music. So okay, I thought to be an entrepreneur and try to instead of a wantrepreneur, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I actually wanted to create these opportunities for myself and create a business income and try to earn money doing what I love. But yeah, so what I did to make time for that practicing, where we finally got to that topic, the bottom line is, like, this summer should motivate you to the things that you're looking forward to in the fall or in the winter or in the spring. You know, thinking all the way towards 2019, you have to realize, you have to think where you want to be within the year. Not just for your professional goals, but personal goals. You know, what do you want to achieve? Like, is music making you happy? And I think that's a real conversation you need to have with yourself. Because if you don't, then you're going to be very dissatisfied. Those are my thoughts, because music is not for everyone. Classical music is certainly a very tough profession. You really have to do it because you love it. You have to be able to wake up in the morning, 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning, or practice until midnight, or have rehearsal at 10 at night with your quartet mates, or have that orchestra job that you have, occasionally from 7 to 10:30. If you don't enjoy going to those jobs, and those are things you're not looking forward to, then you're in the wrong business. And I say that honestly. It's already difficult as it is, and for you struggling, not making an effort to really enjoy what you're doing, it just doesn't make sense to me. So let this summer be an absolute motivation for you to create goals for yourself. Make this a very productive summer, and that's definitely what I would like people who are listening to do, and hopefully that's a good motivator for you. And I think that's all I got for you today. I mean, I feel like the nerves have kind of settled down, and I'm not as nervous as I was before, so I'm actually kind of enjoying this. Hopefully that you get to know a little bit more about me as I continue doing these episodes. My goal is to try to do these once a week, if I can, and if there's like a bye week where I can't, if I'm traveling, or if I'm doing a gig that's taking so much of my time, or working on other projects, then obviously I'll let you guys know. But at the same time, yeah, I want to hear from you. If you have any questions, please shoot me a message. My website is ericmrugala.com. Sign up for my newsletter. And hopefully I can get that newsletter up and running for you guys, so I can keep you all in the loop on what I'm doing, what I'm writing about. And speaking of writing, I write the occasional blog. I try to average around a blog a week, trying to help people stay motivated in their profession, specifically music. This was pretty much like a generic background of like who I am, what I do, what my thoughts were about the summer, what I'm going to be doing. But hopefully in the future, I get to do reviews of certain products and certain violin tips that I'm thinking about and I'm experiencing with some of my students when I teach, and perhaps some practice strategies. And I guess this summer plan is a practice strategy. You have to come up with a game plan, see what you want to be doing within the next few months, because summer is a very long time. So if you're not productive, then you're declining and instead of growing. And I want everybody who's listening to this podcast from me is growing. So, all right, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. And thank you for listening to the ETV Podcast. I feel like that's a good name. ETV Podcast, Eric the Violinist. Thank you again so much. And if you like what you've heard for the first episode, subscribe. Share it with people on your news feeds. Share it on the SoundCloud. I'm probably going to post it on SoundCloud. Hopefully, I'll get it up on Spotify, my Facebook, and my personal website. So I'll try to make it as accessible as possible. And leave comments. I really, really value your opinions and your questions. If there's like a segment, like a question Q&A section in my podcast, I love to do that. I just want to see and hear what people are thinking. I also want to hear from everyday musicians who are experiencing everyday problems. I know that there are some podcasts out there who talk about classical music, but they're interviewing people who are already successful. And yeah, they give advice, right? But I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you personally. I want to hear your questions and your concerns. And if there's any way that I can, be helpful, DM me on Instagram at Eric the Violinist, and Twitter at Eric Mrugala, and facebook.com/Eric.Mrugala. It's really simple. And if anything, if you're lost, then just search Eric Mrugala Violinist, or just Eric Mrugala on Google search, and I'll pop up right away. So thanks again for tuning in and to the ETV Podcast. And until the next one, see you guys later.